Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Flex Zone. We are in week 4. Week 4 top waivers today. We're talking, as usual, you're joined by your host, Sohan Ahmad. I would call myself a fantasy football expert, but these days I'm not so sure. After a rough
I
start.
love how when the season starts, your
thanks-
confidence just goes to hell.
Yeah, hopefully, listen, I rebounded last year, so hopefully that's what happens again this year. But joined by my co-host, who has not helped doing me any favors, beating me by 1 point last night in a nail biter, Rehan Ahmad. He's having a little bit more luck than I do, especially with some of the news and injuries that we're about to share.
Today was I think it was a crazy week. I mean, a lot of news happened, and some breaking news happened right before our live stream, which we're going to address a little bit later as well, in the waiver wire pickup section. But let's kick it off. You want to go into the injuries?
So before we get to the waivers and the flexes and hexes and all that, we got a lot of injuries. We got a lot of injuries to cover. So wasn't so much on the quarterback side this week, although Jaden Daniels did officially, he was rolled out before the game week 3, but he has a sprained knee. They're saying it's a day-to-day. Specifically, I'm very hopeful that he's played this week, but it's not a given. So for those of you, and we'll talk about this in the waiver section, just be on the lookout. I have a sneaky suspicion that it's going to go until the very last minute again, like it did last week. Other than that, lost a lot of skill players. Just going down the running backs, the big ones. James Conner, more than likely out for the year.
I think it's a wrap. I think he's done for the year. I think he broke something.
Najee Harris done for the year.
You see him?
And then we get into, Tyrone Tracy hurt his shoulder. He's kind of like, week to week, but for, we'll talk about, on our flexes, kind of how that plays out and what the impact of that is. But then we get into the receivers. CeeDee Lamb, high ankle sprain. They haven't officially ruled him out yet, but anytime you see a high ankle
that's
sprain,
at least 2 to 4 weeks.
The running back, a wide receiver, I would say it's probably closer to 3 to 4 weeks, right? As a George Pickens folder, I'm praying that it actually means something, because it didn't really work that way in the game itself. But then we get down to Mike Evans. What do we know about Mike Evans? He gets 1,000 yards and he gets hamstring injuries. That's like
so you get one of those quotas for the year.
So they're saying Mike Evans might be out about similar kind of 2, 3, 4 week range. So hopefully this is now week 4. Chris Godwin potentially is coming back. That could really be a boon for some of you guys who have held him and stashed Chris Godwin.
Whoever has a Mecca Buka, you're like
a
you guys are
Buka.
straight
That's
to the moon.
Yeah, you're great. And lastly, we don't know if he's going to be out or not, but Scary Terry, he did miss the second half of the game last week with a quad injury. The Commanders are a little bit banged up, so I'm a little bit nervous being a Jaden Daniels owner. Debo didn't play a lot last week with Terry being hurt. Dynamic Brown is hurt. So, with all the running back injuries that they've already had, hopefully it's not a sign of things to kind of come in a negative way. But those are all the injury notes, and I'll leave this news update that just happened before the podcast to you, your guy, the Giants here.
Yeah, I mean, just the news that just broke right now is Russell Wilson's benched. I think again, that's not an injury news, but it is still pretty significant. If you relied on the Giants at all, like I have, where Malik Neighbors, was ghost for 2 weeks. 1 week went nuclear. So hopefully there's stability in this offense now, but we're going to get into the ramifications, waiver wire pickups and things like that nature once we go into the actual waiver wire picks.
I mean, as we'll talk about it in the flexes and hexes, kind of how that also, affected us. But we'll start with the good news on the flex side. So I'll say that Rehan had a better flex week, but overall we were a little under. We were short on the flexes side by one. We're still close to 50-50, but Rehan, he called it right with Caleb. Obviously they're playing the Cowboys, so anybody who plays the Cowboys, you might as well dial them up. Because Caleb is like, these first 3 weeks, he is he's got to be in top 5.
Well,
QBs
this week
right
he was number 1 in fantasy for quarterbacks. He is, I think, for the season, he's definitely top 5. And another reason when I asked him, pick Caleb up last week is because of the schedule. right? Besides Dallas, they played Las Vegas this week. You could score a lot on Las Vegas. I mean, Las Vegas.
Marcus Mariota looked like a starting quarterback
Exactly.
against the
Then you
Ravens.
got the bye. Then you got Washington. New Orleans, let's see if their defense still holds up. By the time Baltimore got destroyed by Detroit. And when I mean destroyed, I mean like the Detroit was running all over them, right? Cincinnati, the Giants.
It was still a close game, but it was,
but it was very high scoring. Baltimore couldn't really stop the quarterback, or I mean, Jared Goff looked like a legend against Baltimore defense. So all I'm saying is, given the bye after that, Washington, New Orleans, Baltimore, Cincinnati, New York Giants, Minnesota defense, they're scary. So I think at that point they start playing the harder team. So then you got to be careful. Minnesota, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Green Bay, Cleveland.
Yeah. He's got a nice schedule.
But that's murderer's row after that. So at least for the next couple of weeks, he is a good candidate to have, as your starter. But
especially with bye weeks coming in the coming weeks. Then our next flex, this is if you notice, it's gonna be a theme. These are all guys that Rayhan has and has benefited, especially from these injuries.
I picked him up in the beginning of the draft. I knew this was gonna. Well, not.
Yeah.
I didn't look. I don't wish anything on James Conner, but I knew that he gets banged up a lot. And everybody was hyping up Trey Benson and Brad Benson in camp. So I had to get Trey Benson in all my leagues. And now, unfortunately, because of circumstances, he's going to be called to...
Trey Benson is arguably a low-end RB1, honestly. Then your boy, Scatman. We just talked about the Tyrone Tracy injury. That just, Scat was already getting touches with Tyrone there, but now that just propels him into lead back situation. It's 21 fantasy
points. So I'll tell you why I like Scatterbo a lot. And he's on my team too. He gets a lot of catches.
A lot of receptions.
And they showed some plays of him last game against the Chiefs. He absolutely demolished one of the Kansas City, I think it was like a linebacker who was trying to go after us. I think he dislocated the guy's shoulder, right? This guy's like a little mini Wolverine, right? Because he's like a little short, stocky guy, but he's really powerful. And the Chargers
without Khalil Mack, that's not really as scary as they might have looked in the beginning of the season. I mean, J.K. Dobbins just had a pretty solid game against them. So I'm fire up Cam Scatterbo, especially with Jackson Dart. You get some new blood.
And they do a lot of read options. And so one thing,
quarterback, they might be doing a little bit more jumping off.
So one thing that's funny, they showed stats. You're not going to like this. You are definitely not going to like the stat. They compared him to Genty stats, and he's demolishing Genty too. Like compared to Ashton Genty, who you got in the first round.
Oh yeah,
and I got Cam Scatterbo.
There's a lot of people. There's a lot of people demolishing Ashton Genty right now. Marion Hampton, with the Najee Harris, injury, he now is like
he's an RB1.
He's an RB1 easily, right? And Genty, listen, the thing about Genty is he actually looks good. Like he's dodging guys.
He's terrible in pass protection
plays. They're not throwing, but even in plays where I see where he is clearly there as an outlet from a receiving option, Geno Smith doesn't even look his way. Geno Smith, and this is, I would say, less of a mark against Genty, more of a just a observation of Geno. Geno has never really been a great, friend to throw into running backs. Geno is like very tunnel visioned, right? And which is good for him in these garbage time days, but it's also the reason why he had like 3-point fantasy game, in week 2, because he throws a lot of picks because he's easy to read. He's very, very much into tunnel vision, and that doesn't help Ashton Genty. I really don't have a choice. I have to kind of just pray that they.
I think what you should do is when Genty hits the ground running with some soft matchups, trade him. You got to trade him.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So let's get into the rest of the guys. So this is your guy, Eric Ayamanor.
Yeah. Like another solid game, touchdown, nothing crazy. Again, we'll talk about it in the waiver section. Nothing crazy to go. And a couple of tight ends. Juwan Johnson still having a very solid, even though he didn't score last week, he, still had a lot of targets, 8 targets again, 6 catches. So solid, very,
look at the usage. That's the key thing here, right?
Yeah, the usage is crazy, right? And it's not even like, if you look at it, it's not defensive dependent, right? There's a lot of tight ends that are defensive for you. Seattle was the worst defense against tight ends coming into the week, and they actually played him the best. But then you look at Arizona, he probably had arguably his best game. And he's I actually think the harder the defense they play, the more usage he's gonna get, because
do you know why?
Rattler,
because the harder the defensive Saints play, they're usually down double digits triple digits, and they're just
Exactly,
going to be
exactly,
chucking the ball,
exactly,
and then he's going to get those
exactly.
little dump offs or intermediary passes.
Yeah, and then Chico Ngakwe on Tennessee, he had a major upsurge this week. What do we attribute that to? Who can say? Tennessee's been getting beat by everybody.
Well,
pretty
but Tennessee's
badly.
in the same boat. They're down big,
There,
and they have to throw the ball a lot. And I mean, Cam, no matter how
yeah.
good Cam was,
Calvin Ridley's not
he's not
really
doing anything.
cutting it.
So I think they're
I didn't
desperate to
expect
just
him
get some, they're playing garbage time catch up, which is good if you're there for fantasy.
which is good
reasons.
for those guys.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's the good news. Unfortunately, we like I said, we hexed a little bit more than we did flexing. I'll take credit for some of this. Russell Wilson.
Oh, jeez.
Shame on you, sir.
I'm not even going to bring
You
up
will never be on my team again. Never be on my team again. I was there was a point where I didn't think he was going to get positive points. I thought he was going to be negative because I also got negative from my Atlanta kicker, which again, he will not be on my team again. Speaking of Atlanta, Michael Penix.
Oh my God,
how he got shut out by the Carolina Panthers.
I'm actually surprised. If you look at Penix's stats, besides game 1, where he had 24 points, which is a good game against Minnesota. Okay, Minnesota defense is for real, and then at Carolina.
But they were also run heavy. They were very run heavy in that game because they were just, that was when JJ McCarthy got hurt and Bijan and Tyler were just running.
But you know
all
what's
over
scary
them. So
about this? If he does bad against Washington, I've already seen fans in the comment sections talk about putting Kirk back in.
Dude, Washington? Play Kirk and please Atlanta, do the right thing. Play Kirk O'Chains against Washington.
I don't understand. Penix was so much more confident last year. Again, it's a new season. He's got a lot on his plate. He's got to probably memorize more.
People have more to
plays
read,
and stuff like that. But I mean, he's got to step it up because with that offense, they have no excuse. They have no excuse to score 0 points against the Panthers. To get shut out like that is just insane.
Speaking of Atlanta again, Tyler Algier, he unusually, well, it's because they were down so much, but they were not obviously running the ball so much. So Tyler just went.
Yeah, I honestly don't attribute this to him playing poorly. He got 1 rush for 4 yards. Yeah, this is game script.
It's purely game script, right? And then going back to Russ, Russ obviously he took down everybody else, including Malik Neighbors. Wandale Robinson only had 1 catch. It was a nice catch. It was a good catch, but only had 1 catch. If I benched him and played Jameson Williams, who didn't really have much better of a game, I would have beat you. I would have gotten just barely enough points to beat you. But another receiver from a couple of receivers, Keyshawn Butte didn't do anything against the Steelers. Drake May played a solid game, but they were.
But it was Hunter Henry.
They were going Hunter Henry.
Just Hunter Henry.
Hunter Henry went off. I was
turned into vintage
shocked.
Gronkowski.
For real. And then Troy Franklin, which I think, we did kind of one.
Yeah, he was like a dart throw for the future, but
Cortland Sutton's not going to just disappear like that. And, I don't, will he have a game again? Because they're playing, I think they're playing a pretty, average team this week. Could he bounce back? Certainly. But Cortland Sutton is still the guy on that team. And if you're trying to roster Troy Franklin, just do it with the understanding that there's going to be some.
I'm actually curious who they're playing this week. I think they're playing. Oh yeah, they're playing Cincinnati.
Cincinnati. That's what I thought about.
So he's liable to get you some deep.
If you're going to play him, this is the week to do it. And then the last but not least, the tight end Harold Finnan, who everyone kind of has some high hopes on, but again, we did warn. He's playing secondary to Njoku. It's unlikely that he's gonna, unless Njoku gets hurt, that he's gonna be able to sustain the kind of volume you would need for a real tight end.
Yeah. All right, so let's.
So those are our flexes and hexes. Now we'll get into our waivers. Yeah. So starting with quarterbacks. Again, not as many injuries this week, but we're kind of in the same situation with Burrow still being out. We don't know what's going to happen with Jaden Daniels. So I'm looking at my top 3 guys are. I'm looking at Stafford,
who's always on the waiver wire.
Is always on here. The problem with Stafford is he doesn't have a ceiling that's really appealing, right? He's more of a safer floor kind of guy, but he's going to probably get 2 touchdowns. He's going to throw the ball a lot. I mean, between Puka and Devontae Adams and everything else that's happening. And I forget who they're playing this week.
Oh, Stafford? I can tell you right now.
They're
playing in the Colts.
Colts. And we see the Colts. I mean, the Colts are a live team. the Colts are probably going to put points up. So they're going to have to stay in it. So I like even though the Colts defense has been very solid, it's very, I think, a situation where Stafford can still get the kind of usage that you're going to want from the ball. He's not my top guy. He's a safe guy. My top guy, as much as I hate to say this, as much as I badmouthed him just earlier, is probably Geno Smith.
I was going to say Geno because he has a good matchup this week.
He's playing against Chicago. Chicago's defense has not been good. And we've seen the kind of garbage time, heroics that Geno Smith did do. And let's be honest, as much as I would love to say this is the game where Ashton Jeanty gets it right, they're probably going to be down. Caleb is probably going to, it's just as bad as Chicago's defense is. The Raiders are probably worse. Right. So hopefully it's a high scoring game, which will bode well for Geno Smith and, the receiver we're going to talk about now. Last but not least for me is, again, this is all depending on if Jaden is going to be healthy or not, is Marcus Mariota. Jaden is hurt. They're playing against the Falcons. We saw what Carolina just did to them. Falcons defense is not scary in the least right now. So if Jaden doesn't play, Marcus Mariota, fire him up. And especially with the Marcus used to play on Atlanta, have a little bit of that, kind of revenge kind of dynamic going on, a little bit of drama that you can get there. It's a perfect spot to play in the Jaden doesn't play.
Yeah, I agree. So for me,
guys, I need you to take your noise
I
to the other
wrote
room,
this
please.
before this started and before the news just broke, but I was talking about stashing Jackson Dart, right? And now with the news, Jackson Dart starting, do you play him this week? I don't think you play him, but I think you should go for him because we got to see with
the Giants are playing who they're playing.
They got tough matchups. Look, they got murderers.
Chargers. They're the Chargers.
In terms of matchups, they got the Chargers, the Saints.
Yeah, I mean, Mahomes had a solid game against the Chargers, right? I mean, Bo Nix had a solid game.
But I wouldn't start him this
against
week. I need to see what he's like with starters.
I think you have better options. It's like we're not at that point yet where you need to go past the other quarterbacks that are available that can still
of course.
Play
so that's why I called him a stash. The thing with him is though, look, you're gonna hit kind of like the quarter point of the season, right? Of spectacular rookies, they get taken quickly. And my rule of thumb, this is why I got Benson, this is why I got Scatterbo. You can't get a person when he's hot. You have to do it a week or two before.
You
right?
predict,
So in this case, I'd rather take
a
a flyer on him if you have space and see if the team is different, right? He's good. He's a good rusher. He could get you a rushing touchdown. I'm not saying he's going to throw for 300 yards. And plus, he's got tough matchups ahead. So, again, this is a deep stash. But in terms of who to actually pick up this week, I actually think, and this I was surprising, but not really, Tua is 28.4% rostered, right? And they're playing the Jets. And they're playing at home. And Miami's 0-3. This is basically the make or break point for them. And after that, they're playing Carolina. So if Tua can be, the old Tua, it has to be this game and the next game. And the Jets have given up a lot of points this season. So I actually think that if there's a week to play Tua, it would be this week.
And I don't think it's going to be old Tua. I think what you have to expect is that this is going to be new Tua, the dink and dunk Tua. Right. But that can be successful.
It'll still get you touchdowns
as well. I mean, listen, Aaron Rodgers threw 4 touchdowns against the Jets. Right. Who did the Jets play last week? I was literally looking at this and I can't remember.
Was it Buffalo?
No, it wasn't Buffalo. I was just looking at this.
I can find out.
Where they made their big comeback against.
I could find
My
out.
brain is not working today. Sorry,
I'll tell you right now.
Was it Jacksonville?
No, it was
Jacksonville.
it was definitely not Jacksonville. I'll tell you right now. So let's see. They played Tampa Bay last week.
Or Buccaneers. They played the Bucs, right? They played the Bucs, and listen, Baker had a good game
and Tyrod Taylor was playing. So
and Baker wasn't exactly like airing it out against them either. So I think this is a game where I agree with you. Tua could get it right a little bit. But if he doesn't do it now, then this is like he's relegated into that.
I mean, he's a spot play right now. He's a spot play player. I got to see something in these next 2 games that'll let me know if he's a good kind of backup point star. Like in a pinch type of starter. Because
I mean, just look at the yardage. 114 yards week
Yeah.
1, 146 yards week 3, like 315 against New England, right? But again, that's like you can't rely on that. Now, the one thing I'll say, and for those of you guys who care about this or not, he had his best game at home. Where is he playing? He's playing at home. All his bad games are on the road. So sometimes that makes a difference, right? So
Yeah, exactly.
you play at home. If you're gonna trust him, this is the week. to do it.
Exactly. And my last player, he kind of resurrected himself a little bit. Stats aren't great yet, but Bryce Young is my last pick.
Bryce.
And the reason why I picked him is because their next 3 games, and 4 if you count the Jets, are pretty good offensive scoring games. New England is one of the worst teams this year in terms of defense. Miami, Dallas.
Well, so New England's defense they're a tricky thing because I played them this week and their defense is actually better than it was. They're solid. They're not. They actually had a really good defensive first 2 weeks, and even against the Steelers, even though they lost and they gave up some points, they were holding them in check for a long portion of the game. So I don't think New England's as bad as it reads on paper. So I'm a little hesitant to play Bryce Young this week. But again, you have those injuries.
Yeah.
He does give you some running appeal, and it's really where is the scoring coming from Carolina, right? So far, it's been primarily Chuba Hubbard. Their defense got involved last week. We haven't really seen Bryce do a lot in the air. Right. And that's where,
I want to use. I want to point you to the Arizona
some
game
growth.
because in the Arizona game at Arizona, he had 328 yards, 3 touchdowns and a pick. Right. So to me,
and that was all comeback. Right. That was all. They were down heavy and they kind of saved their season, quote unquote. Right. Potentially, we'll see. We'll see which version
exactly.
of Carolina
And to
we
me,
get.
I think if you want to play Bryce Young, you gotta have no options. Like he's kind of like you're desperate. You got a lot of injuries. Like for example, you lost Burrow. And you're like striking out on waiver wires. To me, the next 3 weeks, remember, I was going potential. It's not just matchups, right? It's like Bryce Young was a number 1 pick. To me, if he can't show up these 3 games, then I'm never trusting him again. And I'm not expecting more than 20 to 23 points. To me, 20 to 23 points is kind of like my ceiling.
Don't expect the ceiling.
Exactly.
Right? Like, all right. And to think about all these quarterbacks that we listed, you could probably get them for free.
Yeah,
like, I don't think
you don't need to fab
over
any kind of fab.
You don't need to use your fab. Yeah, don't waste your money on them. Unless you're in like a super flex league, obviously that's.
But you'll be surprised. I think Jackson Dart is going to go skyrocket this waiver wire week because a lot of people saw him in preseason and are hyped by him. So don't be surprised if his percentage goes up.
If you got any Giants fans in your league, take advantage of it. Take advantage of their fandom. All right, running backs. So. I almost feel like this is cheating. Like I shouldn't even bring this up, but Trey Benson is still only, he's only 54%.
That's going to change. That's literally going to change.
Which is obviously going to turn into 100. Yeah. But I don't normally do this, but I'm going to tell you on your fab, you got to put up 50% of your fab if you want to get Trey Benson. If you don't do it, I'm sorry, you're going to lose. Someone's going to drop $30, $40,
whatever the max.
$50.
No, in our league,
this is that
in one
guy,
of our leagues. Didn't somebody drop like $76 on Troy Franklin?
Someone dropped $72 on like Wanda Robinson or Troy Franklin or something crazy. Like, so just imagine, right? This is now a number 1 running back, a young number 1 running back, and on a team that feeds their running back in both the ground and
especially goal line.
So it's an ideal
and
situation.
especially goal line,
especially in the goal line, especially as a goal line. It's a very ideal situation for him. This is like there's always that guy. There's always an injury in every season that everybody's going to like shout and go for it. This is the one. Trey Benson is the one where you need to spend whatever you got to spend to get him if he's out there. The rest of the guys for me, Ollie Gordon had a surprising uptick of volume even with A-Chain healthy. But I think there's 2 ways you could look at it. Are they going to be playing him more to kind of keep A-Chain fresh, which part of me doesn't hope for because I put a lot of stock in Ollie Gordon this year. It's like, I want A-Chain to play and, wear himself down so that they hopefully have to, make a switch at some point. But it seems like they're going to try and play it smart. But if they're going to play this short dink and dunk game with Tua that we talked about, then potentially they could.
I mean, he looked really good in the last game. So I just see him more as a goal line back, maybe in the red zone, getting a little bit more action.
Right, exactly. And it could be similar to like, when A-Chain's rookie year, when they had God, why can't I think of this guy's name? The guy who used to be on the Niners, who like killed it that year. The running back
Oh
who was
yes,
like on the Niners. That
he's old. He's
know,
older.
I can't
He's
think of his
older, and he
name.
had the
Yeah, he's older than that.
Morris,
So it could be a similar kind of situation to that.
Raheem Morris, something like that.
But Ollie Gordon's still only 32% rostered. I don't think you need to spend a lot on him. You could potentially get him for free, but I think if you want to play it on the safe side, I would throw a few bucks his way just in case somebody's kind of in a bad running back kind of spot.
Yeah.
And then the last guy we talked about him last week, I just kept him in here because honestly, there's not really much else that I'm overly excited about. And Tajay Spears, yes, he's on the IR. He should be hopefully coming back in a couple of weeks. But again, you want to get him while he's cheap. Don't wait until he comes back. We've seen Tony Pollard has not looked good. I mean, he's getting a ton of volume, but Joey Chestnut started to get involved a lot last week. And when Tajay comes back, that's going to be Tajay. Tajay's a much better version.
Let me, because I have Tony Pollard. It's not entirely his fault. This offense has been terrible. They're like worse.
Of course, but that was the same thing last year.
But the thing is, with the rookie quarterback, they upgraded a little bit at the other skill positions. The problem is I think I just saw, I don't know if it was this team. They had some shakeup in their offensive, maybe play calling. I don't know if it was this team or a different team, but all I'm saying is that they're like dead last or near the bottom for offense in the season. And look, with the Titans, everybody had high hopes. They thought this is the year Calvin Ridley would be unleashed because Cam Ward is such a huge prospect. But you can't change the fundamentals of your team culture. And the Titans just have not looked good on offense. So to me, if you could get Tajay Spears, go for it. If you have the space, I stay away from the Titans. I don't want anybody on the Titans.
He's an IR spot. He's an IR spot.
I was forced to take Pollard. I wish I didn't take Pollard, but he still did okay enough for me. All right, so let me go through. So we talked about Trey Benson already. So the only other guy I want to talk about is Woody Marks, Houston. So the Texans. So Nick Chubb is the starting running back. Woody Marks was drafted. He's a rookie player. He's really good at catching, and I think as the season kind of expands and goes on, he's going to get a lot more usage. I mean, Nick Chubb is not the long-term answer. So to me, if you could get a flyer on Woody Marks, I know it's Houston. I know their offense is terrible. And right now they look like they're in shambles. But if they figure it out, when Nico and Christian Kirk just came back, if they figured it out, I actually think Woody Marks is the better player to own than Nick Chubb down the line.
Yeah, 100%. And especially if you look at these next couple of weeks, Tennessee and Baltimore are two like the worst, rushing defenses in the league. Right. Jonathan Taylor just dropped, gashed to the Titans. And we saw what happened to Baltimore with Monty and Gibbs. So if you're going to do it, this is the week. And I thought about it as well. Again, for me, the concern is the Houston offensive line and just their offense in general. But it's one of those things where you're betting for the future.
Exactly.
He's going to take over Nick Chubb at some point. He has to, right? Because there's really, even we've heard from their coach, like he doesn't really have any trust in Nick Chubb.
And Nick Chubb had a horrific injury, and to expect him to go back to pre-surgery Nick Chubb is kind of like insane. So yeah,
exactly.
All right. So now let's move on to wide receivers. I know you kind of talked about receivers already, but
yeah, we talked about Alec Iamanor previously. He's still only 45% rostered. Again, it's not like we'll rush out and get him. I don't think any of these guys you really got to pay a lot for. You probably get him for free, maybe like $1 just to stave off any tiebreakers you might have with people, who are also kind of thinking the same thing. The guy who's interesting for me, I'll start with is Romeo Doubs. And Romeo Doubs, it's a spot play. He's only 23.6% rostered, but they're playing the Cowboys this week. That's really the only. Theoretically, put in Matt Golden, or you could put in any of these guys, right? That's Green Bay. You never know. But Dobbs showed a lot of chemistry with Jordan Love in the first couple of weeks. I know last week he didn't, quite have the game that people thought he might have. But that Cleveland game, that was just a defensive slobber knocker, right? So I don't know if that's something that I would worry about. If I'm putting my money on any Green Bay receiver to be reliable against Dallas, for me it's Dobbs. Because Dobbs is more of a end zone, red zone threat than Matt Golden is. Now, Tucker Kraft can also go off against him. That's very possible.
But that's the problem with the Packers. It's like a carousel. You don't know who's going to go off.
But But we've had literally a different wide receiver one every week, and it's like, and they all have coincidentally play against Alice, right?
But you know what's funny?
So
It's funny that you say that. I actually think this is the week for a Golden. He actually had a really good week last week, and I think this is the week he's going to score a touchdown and kind of have probably a big break.
Yeah, it should be. For me, I trust Dobbs a little bit more than I trust Golden. This is what I saw with Golden and how he runs and how his balance and like the way he moves on the field. There's a lot of little things that I'm not seeing with him, like with how he controls his feet and from a consistency standpoint. Those things, they tend to lead to inconsistency, and that's just my visual of what I'm seeing on tape. But the other guy, and I know I'm going to probably hex myself for next week, but Trey Tucker just scored 3 touchdowns. Granted, some of that was in garbage time, but he's had 8 targets and 9 targets. The Raiders, we talked about how bad their defense is. They're going to be down in probably every game they play this year. Like, I'm just looking at what you have on the screen right now. They're going to be down against Chicago. They're going to be down against the Colts. They might even be against the Titans, the way it's been looking for them, right? That's maybe the only game where they're going to be up. KC, they'll be down. Jacksonville, they'll probably be down. Denver, they're going to be down. Dallas, even, they'll probably be down, right? And we haven't really seen Brock Bowers kind of go off.
He's also been hurt
first
too.
game.
So
he's also been hurt. Mayer got hurt, right? Jacoby Myers is kind of still there, but Jacoby Myers doesn't offer you a huge ceiling. And Trey Tucker is giving you that kind of speed element that Geno Smith seems to be looking for, because he's always looking downfield. He's not looking at his checkdowns like he should be, but he's looking downfield. And he has a soft schedule coming up. Chicago, Indy, Tennessee, Kansas City. These are all guys that he can go off on. You could get Trey Tucker for free. No one's going to be looking at Trey Tucker if I'm guessing right. And if you have one of those, Drake London situations, or one of those situations where your wide receivers are not cutting it, you could do worse in a spot start.
Yeah, I mean, to me, so Trey Tucker is the definition of boom or bust. So hopefully those other guys you mentioned on the team don't just take away all the target share in these upcoming weeks, because Bowers, Jacoby Myers, even Genty.
But it tells you a lot though when you're down and you're going to a guy over and over again, that shows me something. There's trust. I did unlock the door.
So I have some gems to kind of talk about this week. So to me, this is kind of public service announcement. When I look at wide receivers, I don't care just about the week. I care about going forward, right? I'm trying to find diamonds in the rough. So this first guy is not a diamond in the rough, and it's your guy. So you just traded him actually, and now I maybe you wish you haven't.
Quentin.
Yeah. So
Quentin Johnson. Yeah.
So let me find.
But I had no choice. I really had no choice. Quentin Johnson. I made it. So for everyone's awareness, I traded him for Jaylen Warren because my running back, my RB2 was essentially nobody, because all my RB2s were literal backup running backs were either getting hurt or not getting any touches. I had 1 point from every one of my RB2s the first 2 weeks. So who was I going to trade? I have George Pickens on the team. I have Drake London on the team. I have Devontae Adams on the team. I got Chris Godwin on my bench that I'm waiting for. Quentin Johnson was my best trade bait. He has a fantastic schedule this year, and I really hated to do the move, especially when you see the target uptake. I had a lot of people in my league giving me guff about making this trade because they're like, "Oh, Quentin Johnson's not a wide receiver 1. How are you getting an RB1 for that?" I'm telling you, Quentin Johnson, Ladd McConkey is not what you people thought he was. Quentin Johnson.
I don't want to talk. Ladd McConkey is really good. I think the problem is Keenan Allen and Ladd McConkey run the same type of routes.
They play similar, and Keenan Allen has the trust factor, the reliability factor, and quite frankly, he's a better receiver. He's not a better athlete than McConkey, but he's a better receiver.
Yeah, but Quentin Johnson, so he takes Mike Williams' role, and Herbert loves throwing it deep, and especially this year now with Najee out. I don't think they're going to lean on Marion Hampton the way they led on J.K. Dobbins last year. I think they're now changing how they are, because last year they were a run-heavy team. I actually think this year they've been throwing a lot, and
they are throwing a lot.
And to me, Quentin Johnson, if you look at his targets, 7, 7, and 10, right? If this kind of keeps up this year, he is going to finish as a wide receiver too, right? Oh, and it just depends on his touchdown rates, because he seems to be their big play touchdown guy. So right now he's
Exactly.
29% roster. That's obviously going to update after today. But to me, he's kind of like the slam dunk wide receiver to get if he's not out there. Other guys I want to talk about very quick. You have anything else to say about him before I move on to the other guys?
No, I listen. I love him this year, and the thing about Mike Williams that didn't work out is Mike Williams always got hurt.
Well, that's also because
Right.
Herbert
Quentin
threw up
Johnson,
like 70-yard bombs between three
Yeah.
people. That's
Yeah.
he was that the guy.
but Quentin is not as big. He's not going for these jump balls.
Yeah.
Quentin is just he's
Well,
fast.
one
Right?
thing,
And
the
so
one major
I don't
difference
think
between them.
the risk of injury is a little
So
bit
Mike
lower
Williams
with
is a high point catcher. He used to jump over three people to catch the balls.
Yeah.
Quentin Johnson, most of the touchdowns he catches are in stride. The most of the games I've seen him do work, Herbert and him, I've gotten on the same page where he connects and he has yards after the catch. So
and right, and Quentin he's doing a lot of work in the middle of the field in the intermediate areas, which I don't think people really expected, right? And especially with Ladd there, people assumed that was going to be kind of Ladd territory, but I think Ladd is probably going to be splitting the slot time with Keenan a little bit more. So Quentin is really going to be your true wide receiver on that team.
All right, so the next guy I'm going to talk about, Christian Kirk. He just came back from an injury, 37% rostered. The reason why I talk about him, he didn't have a great game to start, but just looking at this Houston offense, their running game is not good, right? And on top of that, I just feel like their offensive line being bad, a lot of this is going to go on Stroud's shoulders. You saw some glimpse of it this past week, with Stroud threw this bomb to Nico Collins, and he got 8 targets, Christian Kirk, his first game back. I do think this is one of those offenses where as they settle down as a team and they get a rhythm, CJ Stroud, I'm not saying he's going to be rookie or CJ Stroud, but I do think Kirk is going to get a lot more action. And at 37% rostered, I know we had high hopes for him in the beginning of the season, but then he got hurt. So a lot of people dropped him. I think now is the time. Look at who they play. Tennessee, Baltimore, then Seattle. San Francisco just lost Nick Bosa for the year. So their defense is pretty much, they're not good.
And so speaking of Houston, they actually just released CJ, their cornerback, Gardner Johnson. So their defense is not
good. They're going to be in shootouts, which is what you want from a team.
Yeah, which sucks because I was actually picking them up this week since they're playing against Tennessee. But that might be a 1 week play now.
And then finally, this is my dart throw, but I have my ways of why I do dart throws.
Luther Burden. Yeah.
So if you look at his stats, they're not amazing. He just did work with a flea flicker and some other like gadget plays. 3 catches, 101 yards. These are all just long bomb touchdowns. But I will explain why I think you should stash him. First, he's only 18.3% rostered. I do think as the season progresses, depending on how the Bears play, I don't think they're going to keep DJ Moore. I just seen him on the field with this team. They don't know how to use him. They have him being Deebo Samuel. He's doing running plays. They use him as a running back sometimes. They're giving him garbage little passes. Let's not get it twisted. Rome is the alpha on the team now, right? So the second player, they drafted Luther in the 3rd round. Why would they draft a wide receiver that early if they already have DJ Moore and Rome? And they also drafted Colston Loveland as their like 1st round tight end. I think what Ben Johnson is trying to do is he's trying to get rid of the old players, right? Whether it's Cole Kmet, but now Colston got hurt, so Kmet finally had a showing. But I think as the season progresses, if the Bears are 500 or under and they don't have a shot, I do see them shipping DJ Moore and maybe even Cole Kmet. But I think Burden, the second half of the season, is going to have a lot bigger role on this team if DJ Moore is gone.
Yeah, that's a good call.
So, so that's it for wide receivers. Let's now go to tight ends. So, I know you talked about some of these guys already, but
yeah. So Chig Ngakwe, he's only 22% rostered. He's got, again, we talked about kind of all the reasons why he's attractive. I tried playing him in that's the fantasy playoffs last year. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for me. So there is that risk, right? It is Tennessee. Their offense is what it is, but there's not a lot of people to throw to. Calvin Ridley's not playing well. Tony Pollard catches, he's a safety valve, but he's not going to really do a lot of damage. And then you have Ellick, and that's about it. So Chig is really their most athletic guy outside of that. So that's, again, just volume, tight end volume. Is he going to score touchdowns? Maybe not, probably not. But he's going to get you solid volume for a tight end. Brenton Strange, it's kind of in a similar situation, even though it shouldn't be. because the Jags have weapons. They have plenty of offensive weapons, but I say it
Lawrence
again.
is just back.
As long as Trevor Lawrence is on that team, the Jaguars are going
How did Brian
nowhere.
Thomas
'Cause
turn into
he
from the best receiver to one of the worst receivers in the league when Trevor Lawrence took the field?
because of Trevor Lawrence. But Brian Thomas went off. It was when Mac Jones was playing last year, right? Last year, I got Brian Thomas by trading Jerome Ford for Brian Thomas. And that's because Brian Thomas was doing nothing. He was getting no targets, nothing. Because everything was going to, I don't even know. Like Parker Washington had the most targets this week. Like, come on. If you're benching Russell Wilson, I don't know how any sensible, logical-minded human being,
because the Jags have nobody else,
looks at Trevor Lawrence,
and they put so much draft capital on.
I would rather pick up some guy off the street than trust Trevor Lawrence.
So to be fair, I think this is his last shot. If he does not get to the playoffs this year or significantly
this boy Trevor Lawrence has gotten more last shots than any, and I don't know if it's the hair.
Well, he got hurt last year too,
people.
So he was out a lot of games last year
because he looked like a Super Saiyan. Like people might be giving him a little extra love, but he does not deserve to be. He doesn't deserve to be a starting NFL quarterback. I would go out on a limb and say he don't.
I mean, listen, I don't watch a lot of Jags games, but when I watch Trevor Lawrence, I don't see him make a lot of deep passes. He's inaccurate. He throws little.
He's inaccurate. He doesn't have a strong arm. He's a poor decision maker. Like these are literally all of the things. He's an athlete. That's it. He can run a little bit. That's really the only calling card.
So I feel bad if you have any of those skill players. I know this is kind of you want to talk about your last pick, and then I'll go into mine.
And so Isaiah Likely, same reason we talked about last week. He's 21.7%. I mean, obviously Mark Andrews. We saw Mark Andrews went off last night. Welcome to the season, Mark Andrews, after having one catch a game for the first 2 weeks. So it's a situation where, okay, do you look at that Mark Andrews game and say, oh, well, now Mark Andrews, he solidified himself? I actually don't think so. I think what that shows me is that Mark Andrews is just warming the seat up for when Isaiah Likely
I've seen too much of Isaiah Likely dominating his position to go back to Mark Andrews. And I hope the Ravens think of it
we saw what Mark Andrews did in the playoffs when he cost them.
He cost them a trip to the Super Bowl.
He cost them a trip to the Super Bowl. Let's not mince words, right? So if I'm an organization and I'm Lamar Jackson, as much as I've played with Mark Andrews and have the chemistry, I'm not trusting the guy who cost me.
Look, I look at it like this, right? Mark Andrews, look, he's a great player, right? I think he's a better blocker than Isaiah Likely. But at this point, the Ravens, they're a high-powered offensive team, and they like destroying their matchups. Derrick Henry destroys his matchups. Zay Flowers more than often destroys his matchups, and Isaiah Likely will torch whoever's on it.
And it's also because surprisingly this year, Baltimore's defense has been really weak. Right. Historically, Baltimore's defense.
Some of the key players are hurt.
They might be bad in one aspect of the game, but they're always solid. They're always a top 5, top 10 defense. Right. This year, that's not happening. They're getting burned by everyone.
But that's also I was saying. They some of their key players are hurt. So as the season goes on, we'll see if they still stay like that. But at this moment, you got to play against Baltimore. If you're playing any players,
exactly. And if you're looking at it from that lens, that means Lamar has to score more points. The offense has to score more points. Who are you going to do that with? A younger, more athletic player in Isaiah Likely, or a dinosaur Mark Andrews who can barely
tell me how you really feel.
That's just listen, man. I had Mark Andrews one year. He got injured for me, so I don't have a ton of love for him. I don't got any hate for Mark Andrews.
So the funny thing is, I had Mark Andrews. He got hurt for this is the year where his leg bent the other way, and he was out for the rest of the season. And I got Likely, and Likely was the reason I won the championship that year. Yeah, it's because of Isaiah Likely. So he has a place in my heart because he's helped me win a chip. But all right, so I know we're kind of pressed on time, so let's go through the last couple of guys quickly. So Dalton Schultz on my side again. We were talking about Houston and their lack of running game. I actually think 6 targets, 4 targets, 5 targets. I think with their lack of offensive line and the fact that I think you're saying their defense is bad, Schultz is going to be part of the action. They just have no choice. And again, since tight end is kind of a barren landscape, the same goes for Cheek or Conquay that goes for Dalton Schultz. He's on a team that has to throw a lot, so he's a viable candidate. Anything about Schultz that you want me to?
Well, it's in Dalton. He came from the Cowboys a few years ago, and I think people had a lot of high hopes for him on the Texans. It hasn't really panned out that way, but that's because of just the whole Houston offense is just not what people want it to be. And
Yeah.
I think if they don't fix the offensive line, it's never going to get there.
So we talked about Juwan Johnson anymore before in the past. I don't want to bring him up. He's still only 29.3% rostered. I think that number will go up. But the guy,
Is he really?
but the guy I want to talk about has just come off IR and he's gonna be playing. So it's a stash play for me. Darren Waller. He's gonna be back on a snap count, so I wouldn't play him yet. But if you look at the matchups we were talking about, let's talk about Jonnu Smith from last year, right? Tua throws a lot to his tight ends. Jonnu Smith was a great tight end for Tua last year. If Darren Waller has any kind of juice left in the tank, I know he took a year off because he retired. Now he's coming back, and he's, I think, ramping up now. And I know he had a little minor injury. I would monitor Darren Waller's progress. When he played and he was healthy, he was a beast. So maybe in this Miami team, he can help them because right now they don't have that intermediary player because, Waddle and Hill, they're both deep players. At Tua, it seems like with the lack of offensive line, he needs to get the ball out quicker. So I could see Darren Waller making some sort of impact if he's healthy. So he's a dart throw for me. Yep. So that's pretty much everybody. I don't know if I missed anybody else. I don't know if there was anybody else or some break. No, by the way, this breaking news just happened. Again, this is about kickers. So this is your boy. Koo got picked up by the Giants. So the Younghoe Koo is now officially a New York Giant.
Wow. What are the so this is just an inside thing for the audience. We have two leagues, right? That we primarily our main two leagues. One is our New York based group of friends, and one of us is our Atlanta-based group of friends. So there's a lot of trash talk that happens between New York and Atlanta on our side of the aisle. So it's just what are the coincidence that the Atlanta, kind of legendary kicker for the last few years, now is on the Giants. It's just the trash talk is just only gonna come in more so because of that. So that's just that's pretty funny.
Yeah. So I mean that's it. I don't know if there's anybody else you want to mention in terms of news. I think we covered all the big news stories. I don't think there's anybody else that we need to really speak on.
No, just, again, the only thing I would monitor ahead of the Thursday night game is, Seattle's playing. Chardonnay is quote unquote had a full practice or an estimated full practice. So hopefully he plays.
Because it was a short week, I think they rested him just to kind of get him.
I think so. It's a very easy matchup against Arizona. I believe they're playing, right? So obviously Kenny Walker had 2 touchdowns last week with a really, I'll say, a bad game.
He had a terrible game, right? 16 rushes for like 38 yards.
But he had 2 touchdowns, right? So why am I saying that? Because it's, let's see. Hopefully, it kind of comes back to somewhat of a even split. Because even in the game, Kenny Walker only had 53% snaps, I think, last week. So if that was without Chardonnay,
but to be fair, they were also dominating. They were
that's also true. They were also dominating, right? So just something to monitor. Again,
listen, if you have Chardonnay, Charbonnet, you got me talking like you now. If you had him,
he will be Chardonnay.
Yeah. But the problem is, this is a split backfield, right? You just have to live with that consequence right now. You're not gonna.
And you're playing Chardonnay. If you're playing Chardonnay, it means that you're in a really bad RB situation like I am.
I'm in that bad RB situation.
Yeah. Or you're in a situation where you're stashing him because again, you're. The running backs this year, I'll say, compared to any year where we've drafted, there's been less quality starting running backs in the middle of the rounds. I feel like people are chasing after running backs a lot earlier than they typically have this year. What does that mean? That means there's probably a lot of people rostering backup running backs more so than ever. I'm not just 1 or 2, but a high volume of that, right? That's me. My whole running back staff,
5 running backs.
Except for Ashton Jetty. Except for Ashton Jetty, I have nothing but backup running backs. Outside of now that I traded for Jalen Warren, I finally got another starting running back. But what does that mean? That means that you're playing for injuries, and running backs outside of last year's kind of anomaly, running backs still get hurt at a high rate. We already saw 2 big, volume-based running backs get hurt this past week. Let's knock on wood, it's not the start of a kind of another hailstorm of injuries, but it's just the probability is just there. So you got to go for the backup running backs who are there in situations where you, 1, are good offenses, the 2 running backs that have a sketchy health history. Kenny Walker is one of those guys. A-Chain had some injury history his rookie year, right? CMC injury history, right? Those type of guys that you want to look for, DeAndre Swift, those kind of guys that have injury history. If you're gonna play, get those backup running backs and get them now cheap before you have to get them.
Yeah,
like
at
a Trey
premium
Benson situation.
Yeah. All right. So that's our show. That's our live stream for today. I know we're gonna try to do our weekly matchups this week to kind of go through the games. Hopefully.
I know. So real life has been a little bit hectic this past couple of weeks, but hopefully we get to that this week. As always, if you didn't catch us live, catch us on the recording. Send us your questions. Send us your trash talk. Send us whatever, your hexes, flexes, whatever you want to send us. If you want to be on the show, just get involved. You get us involved, and we'd love to have you guys on the show and make this more of a participation effort. With the fans.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Bye, guys. Till next time.